You have to start with something that is for fun, because if it's not fun for you to develop, it's not going to be fun for anybody to play. Sometimes in life, you just cannot unlock it until you go through a certain amount of struggle. The people who are developing shaders are wizards, and they should be respected. My family is Cuban. I'm Cuban. And I wanted to kind of like tell the story of the Cuban immigrant. There is a space station in your room, and your room is the intergalactic highway. Games are a medium for expression, and you could make incredible art in any medium. Everything's been a lesson, and for that, I'm really grateful.
Welcome everyone to a special edition of The Safe State. I'm joined today by the one and only Juan Lam, the founder of Known Cap Games. Juan has created a pretty cool game that we're going to talk about today, and I'm really excited to talk to you. Juan, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
Thank you very much. I'm doing wonderful. I'm super excited to be chatting with you today.
I can't wait, man. You've made this game called Galactic Traffic Control, and I've played some of it, and I'm just like, man, like, this is a really cool idea. This is a really cool concept, and it's really easy to grasp what you're supposed to do in the game, but it is not easy. It's one of those games like easy to learn, hard to master kind of a thing, but it gets you up and moving. But I was playing it this week, and man, I was working up a sweat. I was running all around the room, grabbing these ships and guiding them through the room. But then you've also built in some really cool features where you can sit and play too. Just there's all kinds of stuff that you've built into this game. I can't wait to talk to you about it.
Thank you so much for playing it.
Yeah, man. Before we get into that, I just want to get to know you a little bit better, and kind of your background and what led you into the XR space to develop games and start your own company. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
So I'm from Miami, Florida, sunny Miami, Florida. And my game development journey really started when I went up to university at the University of Florida. So that's up in Gainesville. And actually I did not take a very typical path in game development. So I didn't study computer science, and I did not study game development. What I actually studied was English literature. I was very convinced that I was going to be professor of medieval literature, but I went to go chat with my advisor about like my second year in, and I was like, all right, maybe I should probably start getting serious about this. So I talked to my advisor, I tell them my aspirations, and my advisor goes, well, Juan, that's great. I'm so glad that you want to study medieval literature. Unfortunately, you can't do it here. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? He goes, well, unfortunately, the only people who could have taught you medieval literature at the University of Florida are dead or retired as of 2 years ago. They were just, the whole department aged out teaching medieval literature, and they didn't have anybody to do it. So I couldn't take the classes. But I'd always had a love of storytelling, which is why I wanted to do English literature. I love stories. I love exploring them. You know, I'm also a creative writer. I write on my free time. So I said, well, creative writing it is then. He goes, yeah, well, creative writing it is then. So that's what I did. I graduated with my degree, my undergraduate degree in creative writing. But all my life, I had always been fairly handy with computers and pretty technical. And when I was like 13, 14, I taught myself a little bit of Python, not too much, but a little bit. And I found that really fun. I got a Raspberry Pi, found that amazing. And when I was in, I think like my third year of university, I got a VR headset for Christmas. I got a $220 headset. It was a Lenovo Explorer. So it was one of those Windows mixed reality headsets. And I loved it. I loved it so much. Shortly thereafter, the Meta Quest came out, the first one. And I didn't get that one because I just got in the Lenovo Explorer, but I was so jealous. I was like, oh, that's cool. Finally, the next year over, I think I got the Meta Quest 2. And I told my parents, because they got it for me for Christmas, I was like, Mom, Dad, this is not a toy. I'm going to use this. And they were like, well, I can't imagine what for, but we support you. That's fine. You don't have to justify it. We'll get it for you. And I was like, yes. So I got the Meta Quest 2. I decided that the path that I wanted to take was I wanted to marry my love of storytelling with my love of technology, and specifically games. I'd really fallen in love with games because of the power of games to be something, you know, a story, a movie, a show, a book is really plot over time, right? Like if you could chart it on a graph, and it's just plot over time. But with games, you have this magical thing where you could have story over time over space. So there's like a whole third dimension where you are changes the dynamics of the story and the just the time, right? The pacing. So I was intent on learning game development. Over my senior year of university, I procrastinated a lot on my homework, and instead I spent a lot of time teaching myself how to make games. And the first game that I ever made was a VR game. I just wanted to hop right in and make a VR game because to me it was the most magical kind of game.
Yeah.
And I wanted to put my Meta Quest 2 to use, besides, playing like Beat Saber and Super Hot. So I made Thor Bridgekeeper, which was an arcade game. And essentially you were Thor and you had the hammer Mjolnir and you were on the Bifrost and a whole bunch of like ice giant guys were coming at you. And you could throw
Okay.
the hammer and it would come back if you press the grip button.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first ever game. It is still my most downloaded game. I put it out for free, I think, sometime in either I think it was December 2021 that I put it out. It was my first ever game. And it got like 20,000 downloads or something. I'm not sure. I'd have to double check. But ever since that point, I was totally in love with VR development. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. So I used that game as a portfolio piece to apply to a master's program. In that master's program in the University of Florida, it was the Digital Arts and Sciences program. So it was essentially kind of like a game program for my master's.
Okay.
And I got in, and there I met some of my closest friends and eventually the fellow co-founders of GnomeCap. We graduated from that master's program a lot wiser. I learned a lot, but more importantly, really connected with this amazing group of people. We all decided we wanted to keep working with each other. That was kind of the birth of GnomeCap.
That's an awesome story. I love it, man. Medieval literature. Those are bookends, like medieval literature to VR. Like those are not the same at all, but but VR is, like you said, it's magical. It can transport you to something medieval. Like there's so many things you can do with VR. And that's cool. I didn't know that you had the Thor game. Is that still available? Like, can you get it on Quest 3? Like,
you can get it on the Quest store, or if not, it's on SideQuest for sure. There's like an APK on it floating around on SideQuest, but it should be available in the store still. I see it listed. It was my first ever game. It was not under GnomeCap. That was like just my own game. It's a very simple game because nobody's first game is great, but I'm very proud of it because I think it plays into the strengths of virtual reality quite well. And when I was designing it, what I was really thinking of was one of my favorite consoles of all time, the Wii. A lot of what inspired me and what brings me joy about virtual reality is how very much it is like the Wii, or like kind of like the next evolution of the promise of the Wii. So a lot of the kind of like design cues and stuff for like how I think you should interact with things comes from the Wii.
Yeah, it's like what we hoped the Wii would be in a lot of ways.
We're really kind of living in the future, the sci-fi future of the Wii.
Yeah.
When I was like a kid, I was like, oh my God, now imagine if I could just be inside the bowling alley instead of doing it through a screen. And now with VR, that is exactly what you could do. And it's super amazing. It's super magical. I just love that about VR, that like your actual movements correspond one-to-one with what's happening in the game. It's immediately immersive, as opposed to like in other games, you kind of have to work your way into being immersed. In VR, that goes away. It's just I enjoyed that so much.
It's so cool, and it's such a difficult technology to explain to people. I feel like you can't I don't think you understand it until you've used it. And so many people are afraid to use it because it's still kind of niche, honestly. Even with the Quest 2 and the Quest 3 selling so well, like there's still just so many people who have never tried it. And it's not like a Nintendo Switch that you can set up in the store and go in and try out at a kiosk or whatever. It just doesn't work that way. So it's hard. It's a hard sell.
You kind of have to show it like to people at like your house. You have to be like, come on, I have my Quest. Do you want to try it? And they're gonna be like, no, put it on. And then you kind of have to walk them through it. You need to be a spokesperson as a Quest owner for other people because it's really hard.
It's like the epitome of word of mouth marketing. Like that is. It just has to be that way. But I think people are starting to catch on and ask more questions and figure things out. Like one of my most successful videos is my Quest 3 review. So many comments are like, I've never tried this before and this is awesome. Like, so it's just such a cool medium. And it's exciting to me that people like you are able to learn how to do this stuff and make really cool games. So can we talk about, I don't know where this conversation is going exactly, but can we talk about storytelling for a second? You said you love stories.
Yes.
So I had a grandmother who kept me a lot when I was young, and she was this great storyteller. And she would
Mhm.
always, whether it was telling me stories from her childhood or reading books to me or whatever, she just had the most excellent stories. And other adults in my life read me stories too. Like my parents read me stories or whatever too. But I like specifically have these just great memories of her telling me stories, and just like I feel like that instilled in me this love of storytelling as well. And I've done a little bit of writing myself, but probably not on the scale that you have. The thing about video games that's so great to me is that it's this merging of all the arts. Okay.
Mhm.
And I think storytelling is an art. It is an art form to be
Mhm.
able to tell a well-crafted story. I don't know. I don't even know what my question is, but can you help me like just expound upon that? Like why is storytelling so important in a video game?
Well, oh man, I could go on about this because this is really kind of the intersection of my passions is games and storytelling. And I
Uh-huh.
love novels. I love books. I love short stories. I love the written word a lot. And that's my first love really when it comes to storytelling. But games are so special. And I think one of the things that's really important about, or really impactful, I suppose is the actual word, for how it is that writing is important. When you're a kid, and you're reading a book, let's say you're reading like Huckleberry Finn, or you're
Hmm.
reading The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, you're reading kids' books. You are following along with these characters, but these characters are sort of like avatars for you. I think reading is so amazing because it allows the young mind to kind of
Hmm.
project itself outward from their own body, their own experience into somebody else's body, somebody else's experience. And there's almost kind of like a transitive property of like a kid going on an adventure and he goes into the dark forest and he's afraid, but he prevails. You feel that in your life, maybe you could go into the like metaphorical dark forest. You could go through tough times and you could come out and you could prevail. And I think that's so important because that embodiment relationship, right, is
Hmm.
incredible. And that's why fairy tales, I think, really kind of developed. They're not only a way to like entertain, to teach lessons or morals or warnings, but they're also a sort of cognitive technology that allows children to kind of like have impactful experiences without putting themselves in danger. They could
Yeah.
learn to like reconcile things that are complex and dark and difficult through the metaphors of the fight between good and evil. And the best storytellers make you feel really embodied in their stories. That's what makes a great storyteller. If you're immersed and you're following along with the story and you're picturing it in your mind.
Right.
And VR and video games kind of take that a little bit further. There's pros and cons to that, of course, right? There's less flexibility in how you imagine it. There's less flexibility in how you navigate it. But it's more direct. It's real. It's more tangible. You're
Mm.
literally controlling the avatar. You are the
Yeah.
character. And in VR, that's even even more apparent because
Right.
you are in the character's body,
Yeah.
unless you're playing Moss, of course. But that's a different. It's still Moss is magical,
It is
in a different
magical.
way. I love
It's
Moss,
such a good
but
game.
that's the power of VR. It takes that kind of that same core power that is
Hmm.
in any kind of storytelling, and it has it inside of it. It contains it, and it's so strong. So that's what I loved about VR. And in my master's program, my capstone project was I wrote kind of like a little story. It's called The Sea is the Sky, and it's about my family is Cuban. I'm Cuban, and I wanted to kind of like tell the story of the Cuban immigrant, especially back in like the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. People on rafts trying to escape their country, go towards a better future, and that's a very difficult journey. It's a journey that many of my family members made. It's a very
Mm.
risky journey, and I wanted to kind of tell a story. So I made an experience where you were embodying a young woman who is trying to make her way out on a boat. You had to row. I made it so that the story would progress as you rowed. But what I really wanted was that like physical motion of like you being connected to the actual act. So as the story progresses, it really all only takes place in one little boat. And then you're kind of rowing. And it's kind of monotonous and it's kind of tiring, but that's sort of the point. I wanted to really use that, like use the physical experience of the
Yeah.
game to make you feel like the
Mm.
character. I think that's one
Yeah.
of the core strengths of VR. My new games are nothing like that. Of course, they're arcade games, but even in that, there's a sort of story to tell. There's
Yeah.
you're Thor, or you are the Galactic Traffic Controller, and you're in charge of all the lives of all these little ships. that's the magic of games. It takes like the storytelling elements of the set dressing of movies or theater, and it mixes it with the experiential embodiment of like the written word, and of course the
Yeah.
beauty of art. It's the perfect medium as far as I'm concerned. It's just everything worth loving in one format. It's incredible. I love games.
I, I do too. And I am definitely well into my adult years. And people are like, you play video games? Yeah, I do. Because it is such a perfect intersection between storytelling and visual arts and auditory art, and then you get to interact with it, you get to control it in a way, and be in that story and in that world, and with that soundtrack, it's like all the arts kind of combined and converge into this one medium, and there's just nothing else like it. There's just not.
It's incredible.
And a lot of people think it's just for kids or whatever, but there are plenty of games that are for kids, but that doesn't mean that I can't enjoy them too. Like I still play
Mm-hmm.
Mario all the time.
And Mario is incredible on so many levels. The thing is, like, I think, what's really funny, I think, and it's really unfortunate, I think in recent years we've taken this attitude towards things that are made for children, and we treat it in a derogatory way, when really, and that could actually kind of be seen in the way that a lot of media for kids now is kind of like made with minimal effort, just like churning out content, and I think that
Mm,
that's wrong, because
yeah.
we should be making art for like children could tell when something is made with care and art and depth, even if they
Yeah.
can't appreciate it maybe in the same dimensions that an adult can. They could still tell. And I think Nintendo is so incredible because they don't treat children in that derogatory way that a lot of media has been over the last 10 years. They treat
Mm,
children with the utmost respect. Nintendo
yeah.
games are incredibly well crafted with
Mm,
depth, care, attention. And I think that everybody should be doing that, because we want to raise the future minds of the world to
yeah.
be able to discern depth, to be able to handle it. And I don't know, I think to say video games are just for children, right? I agree with you. It's totally silly, because in in that case, a lot of our most classic novels in the Western canon are for children. Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer are for children. The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, well, maybe not so much Lord of the Rings, but certainly The Hobbit is for
Yeah.
children. And yet, these are all some of the most beloved and incredible pieces of literature.
Right.
I don't know. And I think games will one day, people will be like, wait, what were we doing?
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
games are for everybody.
This is steering away from VR a little bit, but I don't know if you've played or seen the stuff around Clair Obscur Expedition 33.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many I've experienced it actually. My own father-in-law, I was like, listen to this song from this game. I played it for him and he was like, that's from a video game? Like he could not believe, because the music is like, it is so good in this game. It's just like people can't believe. And I've seen so many YouTube videos about people being like, this is what game music is like. Like they can't believe it. But I love that they did that. They just created something that was so good that it shocked non-gamers into like taking a second look at video games. Like what? Like this sounds like an epic movie score, but it was made for a video game, and people just are dumbfounded by that. And I'm just, you shouldn't be, because there's a lot of great soundtracks out there
Right.
for video
It's a
games.
medium. Games are a medium for expression, and you could make incredible art in any medium at all,
Yeah.
and things that are moving in any medium. And I gotta say, the only thing I love more than games is making games, just
Yeah.
because it gives me, and really part of the reason why I wanted to kind of like create this company and start working with my friends is because, number one, I love working with my friends. They're an incredible group of people. My fellow gnomes are phenomenal. We're a small team, but we're mighty. We're all just jazzed to be hanging out with each other. But even more than that, what my dream is to just be able and allowed to work with incredibly talented people from all kinds of domains. And there's no other medium than video games that lets you do that. In
Mm-hmm.
films, you can to a certain extent, right? Like you work with set dressers, you work with actors, writers,
Sure.
directors, music people. But with video games, you work with all of that, plus
Uh-huh.
programmers. You work with like the people who are developing shaders are wizards,
Uh-huh.
and they should be respected incredibly so, because it is just absolutely magical. Games are a celebration of all of the achievements of humanity, technical and artistic. It's really joyous that we get to participate in that and make that.
That is such a great perspective. So how many people are on your Gnome Cap team?
Gnome Cap is made up of like roughly 4 or 5 people. I say roughly because everybody in Gnome Cap we're bootstrapping. We don't have any funding or anything. So we all have jobs. We're only putting in time as much as we can to work on it. Sometimes in a given project, everybody's on board. Sometimes only one guy's on board. That was me with Galactic Traffic Control. When I built it, I developed it and released it in early access just on my own effort with like my friend, Callie, one of our fellow gnomes. She made the station, but the ships and stuff in the version that you've played, the one that's widely released right now, they're free online assets. I just had to scrap it together because I'm not very artistically capable, at least not visually. So that's kind of how we built the game. And Logan, for example, he made another game called Puzzle Playoff, which is
Okay.
he made that on his own. That's a single player, actually, it's a multiplayer puzzle game. So you could play and build puzzles with your friends in like competitive or cooperative modes. It's really fun. There's like puzzles of the day. It's awesome. I love Puzzle Playoff. But Logan built that all on his own.
Okay.
And other projects we've all collaborated on. So roughly 4 to 5 people, project
Okay.
to project, for Gnome Cap.
That's cool. That's cool. All right. So we put this off long enough, Juan. We need to know, the audience needs to know, what is Galactic Traffic Control? How would you describe it?
Okay, here's how I would describe it. I'd say Galactic Traffic Control is a mixed reality space traffic management arcade game. That's, I think, the correct combination of like technical words to describe it. Essentially, the idea of Galactic Traffic Control is that there is a space station in your room, and your room is the intergalactic highway where when a ship kind of like hyper jumps, it doesn't actually end up at its destination. It first needs to get routed by you, the Galactic Traffic Controller. Once you route them, then they appear wherever they need to go. But they're coming out of your walls, and you just got to make sure you route them.
Uh-huh.
Occasionally, there's accidents that happens, but you're new to the job, and that's perfectly acceptable. That's kind of Galactic Traffic Control.
I'm going to put some footage up over this so that we can kind of see it in action a little bit. But it's so cool because I love it. I love mixed reality because I love when like you're in your room and you see it like it is, but then the wall opens up and there's something else on the other side of it that's not really there. That's so cool to me. And so you've built in like these almost like wormholes or whatever that open up
Yeah.
in the wall, and the ship comes through, and then you have to. This is another thing about the game that's so great. No controller.
No controller.
Yeah.
You can play with controllers, but actually, I might take that option away. I love it with hands so much that I want everybody to play it with hand tracking.
It takes away another barrier for people, right? When
Mm-hmm.
all you have to do is take your hand and pinch the ship and then just drag it wherever it needs to go,
Yeah.
right into the port at the space station. I love it. It it's so simple, but
I'm
then
glad.
like you've got all these ships coming in, and sometimes they'll just run into each other, right? So you have to literally like manage where they're all going and make sure that their paths don't intersect, or that they don't
Mm-hmm.
like. When I first started playing it, I would like have them hit each other right at the port, like right at the entry, because
Yeah.
I didn't space them out enough,
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a great concept. It's such a great idea that you've brought to life. Tell us, like, what was the inspiration for this?
Okay. Well, thank you again so much for playing. I get so excited whenever anybody plays one of our games. We're still new in small studios, so I haven't gotten over it. I think it's still so wonderful, and I really appreciate you playing it. What inspired it, around December of 2023,
Mm-hmm.
I was really frustrated because I was working a job that was like really stressing me out. I was really tired. It was an XR development job, not the one that I'm currently in. It was just like a previous job. It was a gig that I was doing. I was so stressed out and I was so tired. And more importantly, I felt like I wasn't making any headway with the company. I've never run a company. This is my first time. A lot of people will tell you you won't get it right your first time. I'm trying my best. We'll see how it goes. I have faith. But I was like frustrated because I was like, well, I don't know what to build. And whenever I don't know what to build, I feel weird because I always love having a project. If I don't have some sort of project to tinker with, I don't feel okay because I just need something to tinker with. And so I was like, oh, I don't know. And I was thinking, part of my worries, and this is still part of my worries, of course, is what project is going to be either big enough to get us like launched off, or can it get us like funding of some sort, maybe with the publisher, maybe Meta might give us like some sort of development contract. I don't know. But what can I build? I was busting my head over this, spinning my head around, just like trying to figure this out. And one day I was just like, you know what? And at my friend's suggestion, this is the magic of NomeCap, is that even if we're not helping each other develop a particular project, we're always advising each other and helping each other. The advice from my friends was, Juan, just build something for fun. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
For fun? I'm trying to start a company. I can't be doing things for fun. But of course, they were totally right. You have to start with something that is for fun, because if it's not fun for you to develop, it's not going to be fun for anybody to play. So I was like, okay, for fun. I started thinking about the things that I found the most fun. Simple games, but fun games. And I was going through the back catalog of all the games that I love to play. And I think that in VR world, we're kind of in this position where at the dawn of like the touchscreen smartphone, where people were still learning how to make use of its affordances, right? And all the games that I love the most on the iPod, my first ever like tech device was an iPod Touch that I got, a second generation iPod Touch that I had my parents get me because it was like, I don't know, I was in like fourth grade or something, or third grade, I don't remember. But the games that I really loved playing on them were super simple. And they were just making use of, like, for example, I played this roller coaster game that made use of the gyroscope. Or I would play a game like, Temple Run, which is just like, wow, there's a touchscreen and you could like flick and move around.
Angry Birds, like there's so
Angry
many
Birds, super simple games, but so charming and made such perfect use of the affordances. And I knew that I wanted to make a game that made perfect use of the affordances of a mixed reality headset specifically, because I love mixed reality games. I knew I wanted to develop a mixed reality game. I really love VR, but I think in terms of accessibility, anybody could play an MR game. And my grandma, for example, is able to play Galactic Traffic Control. I cannot say that for anything else that I've ever made, or probably who knows will make. But with Galactic Traffic Control, she got to really experience that and try it out and play it and enjoy it, because it's so simple and because it's in mixed reality. So I knew I wanted to make a mixed reality game. And I was thinking of like on the iPod and on an iPad, there's this game that I loved, and it was called Flight Control or Air Traffic Control. It was one of those two. And though that category of game has a long history, actually, going back to like really old computers, where you would just kind of like guide in airplanes into an airport and just make sure they don't crash. On the iPad and on the iPod with the touchscreen, it really found its home. Because before it was like a little bit more complicated, it was a little clunky. You could even play it on the console, but it doesn't work. But when you could just like draw the path for the plane directly into where you want it to go with your index finger, magical. It's so fun. You can go into this flow state. And I was like, that's it. That's the kind of game that we need to make. But of course, those games, like I find that when you're developing a game, if you know that the core conceit is really strong, you're going to be okay and everything else will be figured out. And to me, I was like, the index finger on the screen, Meta already figured that out. The pinch is the simplest gesture that you could. It's equivalent of like dragging, your finger on the screen. It's the pinch. So then I just started doing this. That's perfect. Imagine if you could fly little planes around by guiding their path just by pinching, like instead of doing that on the screen. But I was like, okay, but how am I going to make it fun? Because that's a whole nother question. Is like, how am I going to make this fun? And on that game, the tension, the fun comes from the fact that there's a limited amount of screen. And more planes are coming out of like the borders of your iPad or your iPod. And you have to route them. And you only have so much like real estate to route them around. You have to be very clever, very organized in order to get them in and get a high score, right? And I was like, well, how am I going to do that in mixed reality? I don't know. And I was like, wait a second. Your room is in many ways, with the room scan, that's kind of like the borders of the iPad. If the ships are coming out of the edges of your room, of your walls, then it's just a question of volume. You just need more ships to make it a little bit more tense. And once
it gets tense.
Oh yeah, and it gets tense fast. And once that clicked, I was like, this is it. And I started developing that in December. I got like a prototype of just like a little cube following a line that I was drawing, and off from there, I just went off and started making the game. And I think by like January, February of 2024, I already had like a very fleshed out prototype that is essentially that game. And it's an arcade game. It's a very simple game, but it's just so fun to me, at least. I really
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Like I said, I worked up a sweat because I'm like, when it gets tense, I'm like leaping across the room, trying to grab like something before
Mhm.
it crashes or whatever. And there's like, is there five or six different ship types?
There's five. There's five ships.
Five, and they all move differently.
Yes.
They like the green one, I noticed, tries to follow you. Doesn't it try to follow you? Yeah.
Yes, it
I was
does.
like,
And so does
I
the
didn't
red
notice
one.
it at first, but I thought the red one did too. But
Yeah.
and then the purple ones like pause,
Zip.
and when they're
Mhm.
paused, you can't grab them. You can
Yep.
only grab them when they're zipping across the
Yeah.
room. And the orange ones move so slow, but sometimes they'll come through the wormhole like up really high.
hmm
And like, so like there were times where I was like literally jumping up in the air to jump up and pinch the ship and bring it back down. And I've just been so impressed with how well you guys have been able to integrate this little motion into this game. You did it perfectly, because I don't even know how it tracks it sometimes, because I'm like, I'll bring it like behind my head and up over my head, and somehow it knows like where I'm where I'm drawing the line,
Where it's going.
where it's going. Or I'll like have it down, but I'll be looking over here and I'm dragging it behind me and then pulling it up and into the port or whatever. And it just works. It works so well. And so I've been super impressed with that. Really,
Thank you.
like I said, the different ships move differently. And then you have some enemy types that show up as well. But
hmm
there's a few different gestures. But really, it's just this. It's just this the
hmm
whole time. So you just have to kind of learn these different things, the pattern of these different things. And then every game is different because, it's procedurally generated is the term, right? I guess, or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's kind of random.
It's randomized every time where they come from, and it's just so good. And then talk to me about this, because like I said, like I was like jumping up in the air and grabbing these things. I would imagine that your grandmother who plays this is not jumping up in the air and grabbing ships. But you've built in a mini and a micro version of this into the game.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So that came about pretty late. I published the game in December 2024 on an early access, December 5th. And I took it to the Game Developers Conference in 2025. So this March, I took it to the Game Developers Conference, and I was so glad to go. It was my first time, and it was a lot of fun. And I spent a lot of time demoing the game. I was out in Yerba Buena Garden, just demoing the game to everybody who I could kind of like get to play it. And a lot of people wanted to, because VR has that kind of pull, where it's like, oh, that's so funny. And then came a man who was in a wheelchair, and he wanted to play the game. And I was like, oh man, I don't know if this is gonna work. He's like, I don't mind. I want to try it anyways. And I was like, okay. So I put it on him, and he was able to play a little bit, but not too much. And I found that like he still had a good time, but I was disheartened, because I was like, there's a whole group of people out there who won't be able to play this game. And I don't want that. I want everybody to be able to play this game, because it's so accessible. It's so simple that, I don't know, that kind of limitation it's not fun. So that was part one. But part two of this too is that I was thinking about virtual reality. And in running this like kind of business, I'm doing a lot of market research, and the game doesn't have like an overwhelming amount of downloads or anything, right? It has actually a humble amount, very few. Of the people who kind of play mixed reality games, from my conversations with other fellow developers, but also just looking at metrics online, if a game has a mixed reality and a virtual reality mode, an overwhelming amount of players still choose to play the virtual reality mode. And although I'm extremely committed to mixed reality, and I love mixed reality, and I think it's the most fun way to play the game is to run around your room, especially with wall mode, where you could place each portal on a different surface. And then you're kind of like, oh, orange goes here, and now, oh, blue goes there, and then green goes on the floor,
I want to talk to you about that, but finish your story.
Yes. With VR mode, I'd be opening it up to a whole bunch of people who, at least I think like half of all people who are playing MetaQuest games are on Quest 2s. And the Quest 3 is an incredible, and the Quest 3 and the Quest 3S are incredible mixed reality devices. But the Quest 2 is not an incredible mixed reality device. It's an incredible
Right.
VR device, but it's not an incredible mixed reality device. So I was like, okay, there's this whole group of people who can't enjoy the game. And as much as I love mixed reality, I don't think that's the core strength of the game. It's one of the bonuses of the game is that you could play it in mixed reality, and anybody could play it then, because again, my grandma could play it just like looking around, step around the house. But I was like, I need to add a VR mode. But if you add a VR mode, then you definitely don't want people moving around their rooms trying to get ships. So
Right.
it
Yeah.
actually really ended up synergizing, where the VR mode needed the mini mode, and mini mode would benefit from having a VR mode. So I added both of those things. So now if you play in VR mode, you have to play in mini mode. And mini mode's incredible because the core conceit of the game is always managing those ships and doing this gesture. Like that's the real strength of the game, is how simple and fun and intuitive it is to do that. And as much as I love it when people are moving around the rooms, and that to me is my favorite way to play, that's not the core strength. And I want to deliver the core strength to as many people as possible. And especially, like that gentleman in the wheelchair at GDC. So that's why I made mini mode. So you could you could play it here sitting down and just have a great time,
Right.
routing ships in this kind of like little sphere around the station. That's the
And
story.
the micro mode is even smaller than that, right? Like
Yes.
just this little space station right in front of you, and you're just
Yeah,
like,
it's
and
just
that's what I love about it. Like, I'll be honest, like I can move around the room, but man, I work a full-time job. I'm married. I have young kids. Sometimes by the end of the day, when I have time to play something, I don't I don't want to move anymore. Like, I'm tired. I
yeah.
want to sit down.
Yeah.
So even then, like, I could still play the game and sit on the couch or whatever and relax a little bit, but still have a fun time in VR. So I love that you have the option for whatever play style, whatever play type for everybody. And it's the kind of VR, like VR has this negative connotation of making people motion sick, but even when you're just sitting on the couch and it's in that mini or micro mode,
hmm
I don't feel like that really should make anybody motion sick, because you're not
hmm
moving. There's no locomotion problems with you. So
Right. It's just
um,
all in one spot.
it's just such a perfect game for beginners, entry level people into VR, to say, hey, check out what VR can do. You could have this kind of fun.
I'm glad
So
that was exactly the goal. I wanted to make, again, like that entry kind of, I wanted to make a little like Jetpack Joyride, or like an entry level game for these platforms, because so many of the games I feel are not actually entry level. Even something as like popular and like relatively simple as like Beat Saber. Beat Saber is
yeah.
as popular as it is for a reason. If it's your first time playing VR, you're still a little overwhelmed. You're like, whoa, what's going on?
Right.
But with these mixed reality headsets, I just wanted something that you could you just do this.
Well, like the Quest 3, the first year, it came with Asgard's Wrath 2. And then after that, it came with Batman,
Yeah.
Arkham Shadow. Like,
Which
those
are
are
not
not
beginner level games.
those are
Yeah.
not beginner level games at all. Very, very good job.
Thank you.
Wall mode, Juan, I don't know if I'm just bad at the game or too dumb to figure it out. I can't figure out how to get the gold stars to unlock wall mode, and I want to try it.
So yes. So okay. That came from, I kind of regret that decision of locking the game modes, but we'll talk about that. Now, the way you do it is that in the game, there's like these little stars that kind of show up while you're playing. They go like boom, and like they're like kind of shimmering. You need to pick them up with the ship. So the ship collects it and you deliver it into the portal. If the ship makes it into the portal, you get a hyper drop. Those hyper drops you could then use to buy game modes or power-ups in the main menu.
The little white stars?
Yeah,
You can
exactly.
unlock the game modes with that?
Yeah.
I've been unlocking the power-ups. But I was like, how do I get I don't know where these golds, because it's like yellow. It's like a yellow star on the unlock button.
I did that because of the UI. That will get improved. I'll tell you all about that now. But yes, so that's how you do it.
Okay, great to know. All right. That is cool, by the way. The power-ups, you unlock these power-ups. So in that way, it's almost like a roguelike experience, because you can
a little bit.
Just a little bit. Yeah, it's not quite there, but you'll last longer if you unlock these power-ups. But then you have to draw the path of the ship through the power-up to collect it. To get it. And when they first showed up the first time, I was trying to pinch those too.
Yeah.
I was like, this isn't working. Why can't I
I
get
know.
there?
I gotta.
And
We're working on that, and we're
well,
telegraphing
it
that
says
better.
it like there's text that show up over it the first time. It says collect this with the ship or something like that. But
Mm.
in the heat of the moment, I wasn't
Yeah,
reading
you
that. I
can't.
was just trying to
I know.
grab it, grab it.
I was putting tooltip that we're learning a lot. We learned a lot by publishing this game. One of the things that we learned in terms of game design is asking players to read tooltips in the middle of a frenetic kind of like, I just got to route all these ships. Maybe not the best idea. We got to find some other way to kind of telegraph how to this. So we're working on that stuff now. The
Man,
idea with the ships
I was
with the hyperdrops and the power ups is that we want to force you to break your flow. Like if you'd already developed
uh-huh.
the flow of like how to route stuff, we want you
Yeah.
to take the risk of going
Mhm.
out of your way with the ship to go pick up those power ups and those hyper drops. And that's kind of
I
the same
like
thing with
it.
the black holes. We want your space to become like, oh, all of a sudden now I cannot access part of my room for like 30 seconds because there's a black hole
Yeah.
there. And I got to
Yeah.
pay attention over here. So now something back here might explode. That's kind of
Yeah.
what we were thinking in terms of game design is how could we make the volume that you're playing in a little bit more dynamic.
I love that it's not just like you gradually add in more and more ships, but that there are these things that like you said disrupt your flow. So I love the idea of the black hole and how it shows up and sucks the ships toward it, and you can lose your hearts that way if you're not paying attention. I love that you have to draw through the
Yeah.
hyperdrops to get the little stars to unlock more stuff. Those little touches I think are great. And then my favorite thing is the cosmablobs,
Yes.
and just pulling them apart before they get to you. It's I don't know why it's so satisfying, but it is so satisfying to just grab those and just like, yeah.
Thank you. When I developed the cosmoblobs, I was so excited. And I have like the original sketches of like I drew a little cosmoblob on a piece of paper and I was like,
Uh-huh.
I want you to be able to like just blop,
Yeah.
just bloop.
Yeah.
I wanted
They
that
just
so bad.
pop like a balloon or something. And I love it. It's so satisfying. I love when they show up. I just like, yeah, it's so good. And the asteroids that show up and you just grab those and chuck them
Just
away
toss
and
them.
they crash or explode or whatever when they hit the ground. And in mixed reality, what's cool about that is that if you've got your furniture scanned in, like you could
Hmm.
throw it at your coffee table and it'll explode or whatever,
Yeah.
like that's just so neat that
Thank you.
that it knows that stuff. Did you want to talk about improving the UI?
So, oh yes, okay. Well, we are working on a big update. So we haven't updated the game in a little bit, not since like I think April, and it's because I finally got the opportunity to kind of onboard some of my fellow gnomes. So it's no longer a Juan Lam solo project. This is now a proper gnome cap project, and what that means is we're gonna have much better art, much better art. We finally have one of our artists on board, and they're so talented. Aiden, he's incredible. So we're gonna have better art. We've worked on like the ships. The ships now have slightly different movement mechanics than they did before, and I think it's so
Okay.
much more fun.
Okay.
Like they just have slightly different behaviors, and I
Okay.
don't want to spoil too much, but we're working
Okay.
on that. We're adding leaderboards, which is something that a lot of people have like requested because it's an arcade game, and an arcade game without
Yeah.
leaderboards is just a little sad.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
wants to
Yeah.
see
Yeah. Yeah.
how good they are compared to their friends. So we added leaderboards and a whole bunch of other stuff. But specifically, really, it's kind of we're polishing it. We're all new sound effects, all new art because this is our first game as a studio. And for the 1.0, which we're hoping to launch, finish up, put everything on with a nice little bow tie. If you have any ideas for the 1.0, you let me know. I'd be more than happy to put that on the docket. But we want to wrap everything up with a nice bow tie for the 1.0 in sometime like January, February. But we'll be
Okay.
releasing the art overhaul and stuff in late October/November. And we're
Okay.
super excited for that. And you got a sneak preview of that and the new trailer that we're working
Oh
on
yeah. Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So the trailer uses our assets. So it's going to look much different
Okay.
and better.
All
I
right.
think it looks much better.
All right. Cool. That's awesome. I did get to preview the trailer. I can't wait for you to put that out. It's such a fun little trailer. When you've played the game, I think it becomes even more endearing seeing seeing the trailer.
This will be out when we post the trailer, but the team that we got to collaborate on that with is a fellow Florida
Mhm.
team. And their name's Flow Animation Studios. And they're incredible people. They're a new studio just like us. And you saw the quality of animation that
Yeah.
they're doing incredible work. They're young people. Again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, that's the magic of games, that like I got to collaborate with
Yeah.
such a
Yeah.
talented group of people on something that I dreamed up on a like dark December evening. I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to make. And now it's real, and I got to make an incredible artistic collaboration with this wonderful team. That's the magic
Yeah.
of games.
That's so cool. That is so cool. The update, will that be like a free update for people who've already purchased the
Mhm.
game? That's
Yes,
awesome.
it'll be for sure. It'll be a free update. We're gonna simplify some of the game. So this game, it's an early access, and I noticed I love the power ups, but not a lot of people are using the power ups. So for the next update, I might, maybe not for this upcoming update, but maybe for the 1.0, we might take those off the table for now, because not a lot of people are using the power ups. Because I have the data of like what people are using and not using in game. So maybe we take those off for now and make them better. So maybe for the 1.0, it might be even more fun to play. But yeah, we're working on the game, just kind of rebalancing stuff. We want to put our best
Yeah,
foot forward and make it, just double down on what makes the game great, which is it's
for sure.
simple, it's an addicting game loop, and it's intuitive. And we really want to kind of dive in on that. But we have so many exciting updates that it's the main menu is completely different. I'm super excited to show the world that. Like VR mode is now a helmet that you put on, kind of super hot style. You grab the helmet, put it
Ah,
on, and then you're in VR mode. And
that's
then
cool.
you can take it off to go back into mixed reality. That kind of
That's
stuff is,
cool.
we're working on all that just to make it as wonderful as we can and polished as we can.
That's really cool. I think the game is like what, 4.99?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it is? Like this, listen. Let me speak directly to you, audience. The For 4.99, this should be in every Quest user's library. It just should be. It's totally worth that and more. And like you just heard, you're going to get updates in the future. Whoops, hit my mic. You're going to get really, really great updates, quality of life improvement updates coming in the near future. So, Juan, I think you're doing a really great work, and it's cool that you got to work with so many different people.
Thank you.
One of the questions that I have, and I told you this before we started recording, some of my favorite stories are the ones where you hear about the struggles that somebody went through to get to the end point. I don't think that success is ever your first try, really. Maybe every once in a while it might be. Like
Mm.
maybe that's why we have the term beginner's luck. I don't know, but usually there's some struggle, some failure along the way that you learn from, and challenges that you have to overcome. What were those things for Galactic Traffic Control and for you as you were developing this game?
Most of the struggles with Galactic Traffic Control were what I would call perhaps unforced errors. Well, not so much errors as kind of exploration. And so there's two sides to this, where it's my friend Logan, one of our fellow gnomes, always says, when you're making a game, you build the game and then you build it again. So you do it once to learn how to make the game, and then you build it again to do it right. I don't know actually how much I subscribe to that. I always kind of like balk at that. I'm like, Logan, no way, that's not possible. We're on tight timelines. We got to make a little bit of revenue, or else I got to go get a real job. And I want to make games. He's like, Juan, you'll see. And it's funny because he's right. Because certain features, like the power ups, and
Mm-hmm.
I've remade the power up menu, I think 4 times. Once it was like a little thing that you would like tap on your wrist and it would pop up and it would be a menu that you could like select the power up and you could purchase it. Then I moved it to the station where it was like a thing that you could press on the station. And then I was like, what if we move it out of the station, make it a little bit more roguelite, like, and they just show up in the game randomly. And now I'm like, even like, well, maybe we actually don't even need this right now. And there's another way to build this. That kind of iteration happened constantly throughout the cycle of development. And what's really funny is that the core game, I had that developed by, I think, April. By April, Galactic Traffic Control was 80% of the way to what it is now, April of 2024. But I didn't release it into early access until December. And what happened in those interim months was really like 2 months of me just being like, we need to add something more. I can't release the game like this. Like the game, it needs a campaign. It needs a campaign. And all my friends are like, does it need a campaign? And I was like, no, we need to add more. I can't charge people money for this. It needs a campaign. And
Was
then
that the
it's,
was that the storyteller in you wanting
yeah,
a campaign?
I
Yeah.
guess so. Or really more so, it was even just like, it was, I think this is an instinct in every game developer to like overscope, I guess. When so much of what makes a great game great is kind of how simple it is. And I've really had to learn that the hard way, because I think my mind, the way that I'm built, is that I tend to overcomplicate. I tend to kind of like just go a little crazy with like, just like, oh, and then we had this, and what if we had this, and no, it needs more. And more importantly, I guess it was like a lot of like, I was nervous. I mean, it's my first game, and I wanted this to
Yeah.
kind of, I wanted this game to more or less kind of put us a little bit on the map. Like that was really the
Yeah.
goal of this game. I actually didn't even really care about making any revenue from the game or anything like that. What I needed was for people to know that we existed as a studio and that we're going to try our darn best to make incredible games for everyone. And it accomplished that. And it didn't need all the bells and whistles that I was kind of like agonizing over in order to accomplish that. And this is a lesson I'm still learning. And sometimes in game development, there's sunk cost. It happened. I had to learn that, that like sometimes you're going to put in a lot of effort and time and I guess like mind share, just like pure intellectual willpower into a certain problem. And you're going to have to pivot away from it. You're going to have to throw it all away. And that's okay. That's part of, and to me, that was also always something that bothered me in writing. In writing, I hated doing second drafts or third drafts because
Mm.
I preferred to like put in a lot of time and effort into making a clean first draft. But sometimes you really do just need to burn through all of this stuff in order, put in that effort and time. Everything is going to cost you effort and time. And that's fine. And that's part of the process. And I've had to like really learn how to kind of accept that, because I have this like internal, I want everything that I put time and effort into to just work out. But it
Yeah.
doesn't always. And that's part of the cost of living, is you're going to have to do stuff that I'm working on a new game for Gnome Cap, or I was working on a new game. It was going to be a mixed reality game. And so I put in a whole bunch of time and effort. It was going to be a mixed reality tower defense game called Couch Defense, where we would use your room scan. And so it was going to be a little different than other tower defense games. I've been working on this since slightly before the Game Developers Conference, where a enemy path would be kind of like in GTC, drawn from your wall, across your floor, up your desk, and to the city that you were defending. And so you would place towers along that, and it would, be around your room. And I wanted to do stuff like, oh, you have units that you could only place on your couch, or you have units you could only place on the ceiling or floor,
Mm.
maybe floating
Mm.
units if you've gotten far enough. I still think that's an exciting game idea. Maybe we'll pursue it. But I spent probably the better half of 5 months developing the underlying technologies for that game. Really complicated stuff. It's not easy to build stuff in mixed reality. Just really, really complicated stuff, especially for just me alone, developing it. And I got pretty far. I've gotten pretty far. And I made a game prototype, and it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun for me to develop, because to get to a technical demo of that, it took me 4 months, 5 months of effort,
Mm.
like 600-700 hours worth of development time. In 200 hours, maybe less, like 100 hours, Galactic Traffic Control was 80% of a game. People could play it. People could give me feedback. It was a lot more fun because I had fun developing it. And more importantly, I had fun getting feedback from people. But I had spent like 600 to 700 hours on this thing. And I can't even show anybody. I could only show other programming nerds and be like, look at all this cool stuff that I've made. Because it was just kind of like, it's like the plumbing of a house. Nobody
Mm.
wants to look at, I mean, your plumbing could be well organized, and maybe a plumber will get excited to see it. Nobody's going to be like, wow, the plumbing on this is incredible. I can't wait to see what it's like at the house. Everybody's just like,
Where's
where's
the
the house?
drywall? Yeah, where's
Yeah,
the
everybody's
house?
like, where's the house? And so when I finally made the tech demo, and I was like, this isn't that fun. And I could make it fun, but it wasn't immediately fun. But more importantly, it wasn't fun for me to develop, because I was just like, it was daunting. It was just, it was really hard to work on this and not really have anything to show for it. Like 2-3 weeks ago, we decided as a team, we were like, we got to move on. This isn't going to work. We could go build out better stuff. So that's what we did. That's really tough. But on the other hand, in the meantime, we've been working with this animation studio. We've had Justin, my fellow programmer, as well as Logan, are the two programmers. But like Justin's the one working on Galactic Traffic Control right now, helping out, building out features for GTC. And now we've got something really incredible that we're excited to share. And we've got a new game idea that we're going to be jamming on over the next couple weeks. And we should have something to show relatively soon. It's just part of the lessons. We're this is a journey, and we're learning how to be a game studio, and we're learning how to work together, and we're learning when to kind of like abandon things, when to pivot. There's just so much to learn.
Yeah.
Everything's a lesson right now, which is kind of that's the best part of starting from zero. Everything could just be a lesson. Oh, we didn't make a lot of money? That's fine. That's a lesson. Now we learn how to monetize. We spent extra development time on something that we shouldn't have. That's a lesson. We messed up version
Yeah.
control. lesson. Everything's been a lesson, and for that, I'm really grateful. I'm excited to continue learning and to continue building incredible games with my team.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. And just to take that perspective on all of these things. I think the worst place any of us can be as a human being is in a place where we're no longer willing to learn. That's not a good attitude to have. That's really cool, and that's great advice. I think that's great advice for life. I think that's very relatable, especially to people who are in creative fields, because we've all been there where we've put in a bunch of time and effort into something that isn't working out, and sometimes you almost want to dig your heels in and stubbornly say, no, I've spent this much time, this is going to work, and keep working on it. And sometimes it's just not, and you got to stop and be like, no, we either need to move on to something else or start this idea from scratch. One of those two things have to happen. It doesn't matter if you're writing a book or working on a song or building a video game. Like, sometimes it's frustrating and it's hard, but that is
part of the
how it
deal.
happens sometimes. Yeah.
You always learn something.
And
I will say I learned so much doing that. It was a very technical process. It was really difficult specifically pathfinding across your room, right? I had to build my own pathfinding solution because the Unity nav mesh doesn't work the way that I want it to for the tower defense kind of game. So I learned a lot about algorithms, burst compiling, all that stuff. Even if I don't end up actually using it, I'm going to try to make it an open source package for other MR devs to use. That's a little bit low priority, but eventually it will happen. But even if I don't do that, at the very least, everything I learned in that process is still valuable, even if I didn't get to build the game that I wanted to build out of it. And that's just how it is sometimes.
One of my kids was frustrated with school and how they were struggling with something, and to the point where they didn't want to do the work because they were afraid they were going to fail. And I finally had a light bulb moment, which is kind of a pun, because I was thinking about Thomas Edison, and I might butcher this quote, but he failed like 1,000 or 10,000 times to build a light bulb. And he said, I didn't fail. I just found 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb.
Not to build, absolutely.
And that's the right perspective to take on that, I think.
That's a great insight.
Each iteration we can learn from. There's
a lesson. To put it in video game terms, I guess it's almost like each iteration you're getting XP to finally unlock the thing. Sometimes in life you just cannot unlock it until you go through a certain amount of struggle, and then once you do unlock it, it's so easy. And well, I'm grinding for XP right now, I'll tell you that. But it's so fun and it's so exciting.
I get it. It is exciting. That's how I feel with this whole YouTube journey. I feel like I'm grinding for XP with each video. Sometimes you get to the other side, or the other end of the spectrum, is that something is working out, but creatives, I think, also have this other problem of it's not there yet. Like, we're 99% of the way there, but they keep wanting to add that one little extra thing. And sometimes you just have to say, okay, I can't spend any more time on this. It has to be done. That's probably a whole nother discussion. But I think that that a lot of us deal with that as well. Like, at some point, you've got to move on to the next project. The little things that you see, probably 99.99% of people will never think about.
And that's especially true in game dev, because game dev is so costly, like in terms of like literal money, but also time. It's so time intensive to make games. One of the things for Galactic Traffic Control specifically was multiplayer. We wanted to do multiplayer co-located, and then maybe also, like remote in VR mode. That would be so fun. I don't know if it's going to be worth us. I mean, maybe if like 20 million people end up downloading it over the next week or so, maybe we'll be like, well, maybe we should add multiplayer. But short of that, we got to move on to the next game and keep on growing and keep on trying out. But we're really proud of Galactic Traffic Control, and thank you so much for playing it. Really, we want to keep adding more stuff to it, but we also gotta spread our wings and see where else we could go, what other cool kind of experiences we could make.
Absolutely. I agree. Co-location multiplayer would be cool, but my understanding, and I'm not a programmer or a developer or anything, but my understanding is that's a very difficult process.
Anything with multiplayer, like as a dev, and I'm not even the multiplayer dev really, but anything is multiplayer, just add another like 60% to your development timeline just off the bat. It's scary.
It's a whole nother different. There's all kinds of bugs and stuff that come up when you start trying to add that stuff is what another guy was telling me in a different interview, that he was doing co-location in a game, and it was really hard. It's really hard stuff. So
It's tricky.
yeah.
And I do eventually want to tackle multiplayer game, because multiplayer games, I think, are one of the core strengths of virtual reality over any other kind of like medium, because of the embodiment. And that's something that we really cracked, we really figured out with Gorilla Tag and with all the monkey games that followed, Animal Company, all the games in that, giant cat, they're so successful for a reason. And that reason is they're making use of two of the biggest strengths of VR, which are embodiment and multiplayer. The fact that you could be, one follows the other. You're embodied, but then you're embodied in a space with your friends. And that kind of proximity chat, it's so powerful. I would love to build a game like that, but of course, we are a very small studio, and that kind of game, like what we were talking about with multiplayer, it brings on a whole suite of new headaches. You've got to do moderation, right? Of course, especially if like a lot of like younger folks are going to be playing that game. You want to make sure that they're safe and that they're okay. That's a whole thing. The multiplayer architecture is a whole headache. Accounts, in-app purchases. Oh my gosh. It would fundamentally change what kind of studio we are if we pursued that path, even though it seems like that path is the most successful. So I think we'll hold off for now. And we'll hold off until we could do something that we feel puts a gnome cap spin on that sort of game. But future projects, there's a ton coming up. I'm excited.
Very cool. With Galactic Traffic Control, I have two questions. One is, how has the community feedback been for the game? You've gotten a lot of good feedback.
It's been really good. Everybody who's played it has had a really good time. But the problem has been getting people to play it. The reviews have been good. Every kind of like the reviews of like other YouTubers or like VR media have been good. Everybody who's played it has had a really good time. But it's just been really hard to convince people.
4.9 stars. 4.9 stars on Meta right now, on the Meta
Yeah,
store.
it does. Right now, it only has, how many reviews does it have? It has
it's not very many, but they're all high.
No. Yeah, they're all at least there's that. They're all high. But really anecdotally, I've been able to show, everybody who I've shown the game has had a pretty good time with it. And that's something that I'm proud of. Like there's no limit to the amount of people that I've been able to kind of show the game and have them have a good time. And that's something that I think is actually quite an achievement in VR, and or rather I should say the XR industry in general, just because you can't show everybody the same game really and have them have a good time, and there's too much buy-in. But Galactic Traffic Control, the thing that I'm most proud of, you could just hop in, have a really good time, hop out. And sometimes you don't even, you're not discontinuous from the space. If you're playing in mixed reality, you're in the space with everybody else, so it's not even really that jarring or disconnecting. So it makes it even easier to be able to just kind of play it. And so I'm proud of that. But yeah, everybody's enjoyed it who I've shown it to and who's played it. So I'm super excited about that. It's still really magical whenever anybody tells me they had a good time.
Well, it is a great time, and I'm excited to see what else comes from Gnome Cap Games. I would like to know where you came up with the name Gnome Cap, because I like it. I think it's a great name for a studio.
Thank you. Our first game together was, we did a game jam. The theme of the game was roots, and so we had to build a game with roots, and then we wanted to build a VR game. And what we ended up coming up with was that we were thinking about roots, and we were thinking about like, okay, what creatures go with roots, and we were just riffing on the idea, and we eventually came up with like the idea of this game where there was like a little tree where the gnomes lived, a whole bunch of little gnomes, and its roots needed to get to like a well, in like a cosmic well, in order to survive. You had to protect the tree until the roots got to the well, and you did that by plucking weeds off of the planet, like off of the little, and you would spin it around and pluck weeds, and so you had to do that until you won. It was gnome themed, and I love gnomes, and we all loved gnomes, and that's kind of, we were like, wow, that's so charming. Then that very weekend we were like, let's make a game studio together. We had such a good time in this jam, let's make a studio together. So we were coming up with names, and we're like, well, there has to be a gnome in it. We riffed off of a couple ideas. One of my ideas for a studio name was Phrygian Interactive, because the hats that the gnomes wear, the little red hats, they're called Phrygian caps, because the Phrygians, which were like a historic people, we're famous for wearing this like little hat, and the hat was like a sign of liberty.
Okay.
That's kind of the what the hat's a symbol of. So I was like, oh, Phrygian Interactive, and I was like, that's too serious. We're not that serious as a team. We're fun. And so eventually we were just like gnome cap. At the time, the slang, everybody was like no cap, man.
Oh
So we were
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
gnome cap. That's kind of how we came up with the studio name. And I love alliteration,
Okay.
so it worked out. Gnome Cap Games.
Very good. Very good. I love it. Man, Juan, I so much appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. I am trying to hone my interview skills. I don't feel like I'm very good at it yet, but I appreciate you you taking the time to talk to me. I know that you're busy, man, working on all these different ideas, all these different games, always got a project going on, and I love it. So definitely, everybody, I will have a link in the description for you to check out Galactic Traffic Control. Just go watch the trailer, go look at the screenshots, go read the description at least, and just see if it's a game for you, because like I said before, it should be in every Quest user's library. But Juan, thanks again for being here. Do you have any closing thoughts any inspirational words of wisdom that you want to share with us before we sign off here?
Words of wisdom? I'm fresh out, but I do want to express my utmost gratitude. And maybe that's wise to always express gratitude. I want to express my utmost gratitude for, number one, the work that I get to do, and Bo, you for talking with me and taking the time to chat with me and reaching out. And more importantly than anything, playing my game. I really appreciate that. And to anybody else who's watching this, who ends up playing the game, or for watching it at all, thank you so much for being with us. And yeah, Bo, again, thanks so much. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you.
Likewise. And the game is a true delight. And I think those are wise words to end on. Always be grateful. There's always something to be grateful for, even on the toughest days. Thanks for watching. Stay kind and encouraging out there, and we'll catch you on the Flippity Flip.